Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Coolie McDoolie podcast. I'm Billy Gillane here with Colby Spitz. And today we actually have quite a full plate for you. We're going to be discussing the new Han Solo trailer, or Solo trailer that just dropped the day after the Super Bowl, the new Deadpool 2 trailer that just dropped, and we'll be giving kind of a quick preview, I guess, of the Black Panther movie coming out next week. And then after that, we're going to have a little fun and fan cast for the It 2 movie scheduled to come out in what, 2019, 2020?
Yep, September 2019. I have to say, I'm pretty
2019.
excited for this.
Yes, so we got in that order. So we got a pretty full plate for you. So let's go ahead and get started with that Han Solo trailer. So Colby,
All right, so
let's.
if I'm being honest, my first reaction, I'm not entirely into this one. I'm a little nervous, just because Disney even kind of came out and said they're not expecting Solo to do well.
Mhm.
Now, I've never been disappointed by Star Wars, too much at least. They've had their ups and downs. Say what you will about The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, I think it's going to be good. I am scared, like Disney, like I said, Disney, not being too excited about it, not having full faith. The lead, the playing Han Solo, needed acting lessons, and I just don't know if they're gonna get the satire and the dramatic
Hmm.
aspects of the film right. I don't know if they're gonna try and go too funny. If they're gonna try and go, there's a lot of different ways this could go wrong. But if they do get it right, I think it could be a fantastic film.
Absolutely. Do you think this trailer eased some of your worries or confirmed them? Maybe.
It kind of, yeah. I mean, in a lot of ways, it did ease them. It looks like a Star Wars flick. They didn't shy away from some of the things that you were expecting in there. The race to get the Falcon, they kind of nodded at that.
Yeah.
Chewie's in it. I have to say, I'm still, and this is more than just the trailer. This is since it's been announced, but Donald Glover as Calrissian, it really excites me. I think
Oh yeah. No,
he,
he's probably the part of that movie I'm most excited for.
right, I think he's just gonna get that part right. Um, a lot of it, I'm not too worried about some of it. I have faith. I have enough faith in the Star Wars franchise that it's gonna be good, though.
Yeah, I'm sort of in the same boat as you. I was before this trailer came out. I was a little worried about this film and everything with the change in directors, the having to refilm almost the entire movie with Ron Howard as after they fired the previous directors of the film because it wasn't the direction that Disney or Lucasfilm wanted to go with the film.
Right.
Um, After seeing this trailer, um, it doesn't make me like super excited to see this movie necessarily, or as excited as I have been for the past three Disney Star Wars movies.
Yeah, definitely.
Um, Simply because I don't think this trailer showed us anything that I didn't expect to see in this trailer.
Right. The
Um,
thing, Solo or Han Solo is an interesting character because a lot of these characters you do want a backstory to them. You want to know how they got there. Rogue One was cool because it led into questions that had been asked, but George Lucas had never really thought about. I guess.
yeah.
It just answered questions that people were thinking about. But with Han Solo, it's kind of a lot of his character is you don't know about him. He's just kind of there,
Hmm.
and he kind of just fits into the story really well. So it's kind of just the movie nobody's been asking for, but at the same time, I think, like I said, if they do get it right, it'll be a very nice addition to the entire franchise.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. The main concern I have with this film is Han Solo himself. What's the actor's name?
Oh,
Alden Ehrenreich.
there you go.
Alden Ehrenreich. He doesn't feel like Han Solo to me,
He,
entirely. And I know Harrison Ford, one of the greatest ever. Han Solo, one of the greatest characters ever. So I don't know. I feel like you said this is the movie nobody wanted. I feel like part of that reason is because it's going to be hard for me to see anybody else play that role, play that character to be as well as Harrison Ford did.
that's yeah,
And I
that's
guess
the
that's kind of where a lot of my skepticism still lies. I'm going to see the film. I'm still fairly excited for this film. It's Star Wars. I'm always going to be excited about a Star Wars movie until unless we get like 10 bad Star Wars movies in a row. I don't think that's ever going to happen. But so I'm looking forward to it, man. I'm looking forward to it. At the end of the day, I thought this was a good trailer, not a great trailer, nothing special.
It did a good enough job of, staying away from telling you everything about the movie, because a lot of trailers nowadays, and I'm going to try not to go on a little rant here, but a lot of trailers they just show you what's going to happen. And, I'll just be sitting in a movie theater and I want to see that movie, and yet after the trailer I feel like I don't need to. They give you too much.
There's also been a trend with movies, trailers either not giving you anything either or misleading.
Absolutely. Biggest
we saw that with War for the Planet of the Apes trailer, kind of misleading people a little bit.
The one that comes to mind for me is Mother. They really marketed that as a horror when it turned into a
not good movie.
Ooh.
And then obviously with Blade Runner 2049 was the one I'm thinking of. It was a great film, but the trailers told you nothing of what it was about.
Definitely.
I went in there knowing this is a Blade Runner sequel with Ryan Gosling and then Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
Cool. So I mean, yeah, I feel like this trailer, it told us enough. It told us what we needed to know.
Now, I will say I'm very excited to see what Woody Harrelson brings into the movie. He's easily my top 5 actors. He's always entertaining. He can play dramatic. He can play lighthearted. He just really does it all. And I'm excited to see what he brings into the movie.
Well, absolutely, man. Absolutely. I mean, it's a good cast, all things considered.
Right.
A good supporting cast that they got around Alden Ehrenreich. And like I said, he might still be a great Han Solo. I don't know. I haven't obviously seen enough to be able to determine that yet. So I guess we'll go on to the next trailer. We have Deadpool 2 trailer.
All right. Now, go ahead.
No, go for it, man.
All right. It's okay. I'll cut this. So with Deadpool 2, I have to say one thing that I will never be able to take away from Deadpool. Say what you will about the movies. They're usually, the first one is obviously fantastic. Second one, I'll get to that in a second. But what 20th Century Fox did, and I guess Disney at this point, they have the marketing scheme for that film, or that series of films, down to a T. I mean, they mix it in the serious notes, but you don't watch a trailer and not laugh. When they announced the teaser first came out for Deadpool 2, you see his ass. He's changing in a telephone booth. I mean, it's just so funny. But you also know, and that goes back to the first one. They mix comedy, they mix enough seriousness to it, and it turns really just into a badass action flick.
No, I completely agree. This trailer for me it made me excited to see this movie. Not that I wasn't already, because I think Ryan Reynolds was born to play Deadpool.
Absolutely.
So Cable, you have Josh Brolin.
Yes.
Who's fantastic. I'm really looking forward to seeing what he contributes to this film. Especially, it looks like it's going to be almost a straight man to Deadpool's.
Yeah,
so I'm looking forward to that.
I think Ryan Reynolds, or Deadpool for that matter, and Cable are going to play off each other very well. It's a nice contrast between taking the superhero job very lightly and taking it very seriously. And I think they'll play off each other extremely well. I'm excited to see how that goes.
Yeah.
But more onto the aspect of the trailer. Josh Brolin looks incredible as Cable. I think he's going to be fantastic. Ryan Reynolds, per usual, is wonderful. One thing that I don't know if they needed to do, but they're bringing back a lot of the same characters that were in the first one.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, like to the point where it's like even the taxi driver is back in it. I mean, like if it's a cameo, I think it's a little different.
Yeah,
but he's in the trailer.
More like 1 or 2 scenes.
But he was in the trailer is what kind of bothers me. Had he not been in there, and it's like a surprise, like you're just watching, you're like, oh my god, it's him. That would have been funny. But he's in the trailer, and it just a little bit it bugs me.
Uh, I mean, I can see that a little bit. I don't have a problem with him being in the trailer because I liked him in the first movie. I thought he was hilarious, taxi guy. But while watching this trailer, I thought of something that is pretty much unrelated to this trailer, and that is the fact that Josh Brolin is playing Cable, and Disney just bought the rights to this movie or to this franchise. Disney owns Fox now, well, the film aspect of Fox, and he also plays Thanos in the MCU. Assuming that the X-Men and Deadpool and Fantastic Four join the MCU, they're going to have to recast him, I would assume, right?
Yeah, I guess so. You're right. I haven't thought about that. One thing I will say is by the time they bring Deadpool into the MCU, I get the feeling that we'll be done with this entire span from Robert Downey Jr. like that era of the MCU. I feel like that'll kind of be wrapping up by then. So they might end up holding off on bringing in Cable and Deadpool.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't even know if to be honest with you, if they'll bring Deadpool into the entirety of the MCU, or just do solo movies, because I can't picture having Deadpool in a PG-13 Avengers film. That just wouldn't feel right almost.
Yeah, like I
He'd
think
interact with people, but he wouldn't be able to be himself.
I think the whole Logan slash Deadpool universe has to stay a little bit separate from your family friendly MCU.
See, I disagree. I think X-23, which would be the main character from Logan, I think you could bring her over to the MCU simply because, I mean, I don't feel like that character needs the R rating to justify
Yeah,
the film. I thought she gave a great performance, but it wasn't like she was cursing up a storm. She was violent, but you take out the blood, you're fine.
yeah. To an extent, though, a lot of what makes those films what they are is it's kind of unfiltered. It's not seeing a superhero as the public should see them, but you're just kind of seeing these goof up characters trying their best to be a superhero. Or in Logan, he's very raw. You see the underside to all the fame and all the glory, where he's even ridiculing the comics.
Well, I get that, but I feel the one thing the MCU has done great with its heroes, at least, is they've given them a great bit of development. They seem to understand the characters that they have and how to tell the stories they have with those characters. Um, I feel like they would understand if they had an X-23 or Laura in the universe. They'd be able to understand that character and how to most effectively tell stories with that character, as they've proven since 2008 now, with a solo of 10 years
Mm-hmm.
with the start of the MCU. So I feel she'd be great. Now, we kind of went off topic there a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Uh, the trailer, you like the trailer?
Yeah, I thought the trailer was pretty well done. The only real flaw that I had with it was they didn't tell you anything, which isn't a bad thing. Speaking, it's still a few months away, and it's not like they're trying to hide anything. It's just that they don't want to tell you too much, and I get it. I don't think it was a very entertaining trailer.
Yeah, I feel like the trailers for this movie are almost pushing. They're not necessarily designed to push the plot. They're designed to push the characters. No, hey guys, look, Deadpool's back and he's still Deadpool. Come see Deadpool. So I feel like that's more what the trailer is trying to get across. That's more what the entire marketing has been trying to get across as a whole. And I appreciate that, and I'm fine with that for this particular case.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I'm still, another one that I'm definitely going to see. Fully excited for it. But that's number 2, to which number 1, the next superhero movie I'm most excited for, being Black Panther. What are your thoughts on that one?
Great segue, man. My thoughts are I'm excited for this movie, man. Like I said, I got my tickets for it and everything, man. We're looking forward to this movie. I don't know what else to say. I love Chadwick Boseman. I obviously have complete trust in Disney and what they've done with the MCU.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, it's the last movie before Infinity War, so I'm expecting a whole lot from this movie. I am not gonna lie. I don't think I'm the only person who falls in that camp.
Right.
But I'm expecting it to be able to deliver on that.
Now, I believe, assuming that this is true, what I've heard is Black Panther has pre-sold the most tickets to any MCU film yet.
Yeah, I know it's absolutely killing it so far with pre-sale. Its projections have just kept going up. Last I saw was projected to make 150.
Yeah. Which
Its
is
opening weekend, which I think is a record or close to a record for the most by a first standalone film.
really.
So, like Iron Man, the first Iron Man, or the first Captain America, or like the first Thor, or like stuff like that. Not like Avengers or anything like that, but the first introduction of a character in a standalone film.
Huh.
I believe in the superhero genre, at least, that would be an opening weekend record.
Well, see,
You can fact check me on that because I'm not 100% sure, but I believe that's the case.
one thing I will say is, didn't mean to cut you off there. One thing I will say though is that it really blows my mind that after we've been so saturated in the superhero market, you have DCEU, you have the MCU, you have Logan, or like the Logan, the Deadpools. You have all these movies. You're so saturated with all these superhero flicks, and yet they announced Black Panther, and it's still, it's still killing the numbers. It really surprises me, which really leaves me thinking that we're in store for something really special.
Like I said, I hope so, and I expect so because, like I said, I'm a huge Chadwick Boseman fan. I'm a huge Michael B. Jordan fan. It's going to be a great movie. I hope.
Definitely.
And like I said, we have 4 months till Infinity War after that. So.
Yep.
I'm ready, man.
And then Kendrick Lamar doing the soundtrack is something else that I am unbelievably excited for. I've heard a handful of the singles already.
Fantastic.
Phenomenal. Kendrick being one of my favorite artists.
He's probably my favorite current artist.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, favorite current artist.
But yeah, when I heard that he was teaming up with a film like this, I feel like you're just almost promised that it's going to be fantastic. You're in for a spectacle with your ears, your eyes. I like you were starting to get on this too. The cast blows me away. Michael B. Jordan, Chadwick Boseman, two of my favorite actors. Michael B. Jordan was phenomenal in Creed and all of those. He's been in a handful of others.
Shout out.
Also, Chadwick Boseman playing everything from Jackie Robinson to a superhero. He's another one that blows me away, and I'm just excited for this cast.
He had the opportunity to play Jackie Robinson, Thurgood Marshall, and James Brown. I love this guy, man. He's done a good job with all three. I love this man.
I can't disagree with you on that one.
So yeah, anything else to add to that? Are you ready to get to this fan casting?
Yeah, I don't think I have anything else to say except for Black Panther. I'm so excited, and I'm hopefully seeing that, if not opening night, the night after. We'll see if we're sold out yet around me.
Yeah, we bought our tickets like a week or two ago. I believe the earlier showings were sold out, so we ended up going to 9 o'clock.
That's wild.
But so yeah, so fan casting for the sequel. I said that horribly.
The It Chapter 2 fan casting released in 2019.
That. Yes. So we have our own list each. We each casted our own cast. And we don't tell each other who we're casting yet, so we might have some overlaps. We apologize for that. Not really.
Yeah.
But so let's go ahead and get started here. I think it would make sense to start with the main character, who is Bill.
All right.
So who do you have for Bill, man?
So for Bill, I have two. Now, starting off,
okay, you have two.
My first one is Tom Hardy. It's a little bit of a grittier kind of casting for him, but I do think he could pull it off.
I don't think he'd be scared of the clown if he was Tom Hardy.
I mean, you're not entirely wrong. So yeah, I did. Here's what I did. I went one that's really strong and like kind of the badass pick, and then I went with my other pick, which was Wes Bentley.
Okay.
He's been in The Hunger Games. He's been in Interstellar, American Horror Story. I think he could play a much more timid casting of Bill.
I think that's almost what you kind of have to do. I don't know, like he's a leader. He's definitely a leader. We see that in this film. But he's a
Right.
much more quiet leader, reserved leader.
But the thing
Um,
with Tom Hardy though is I definitely think he has it in his acting chops to tone it back a lot.
I feel he has the ability in his acting chops to play whatever role he wants, which is why I'm not going to say it was a bad choice to choose him to play this role
Absolutely.
because he could play Wonder Woman, and I think it's a great casting choice. It's Tom Hardy.
Well, with
Um,
Bill though, and this is my last thing. With Bill in the first film, you do see he has his moments of being very timid, but when he has to, he really does bring it. And so, if you're looking at the timeline of his life, maybe he does come out of his shell a bit.
yeah, yeah. Okay. Like I said, I can see. I like both of those choices. Um, I like West a little better though.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just because, like I said, I don't know if this is the best role to have Tom Hardy in, but
Right.
I don't have any major issues with it. So for me though, I have Tobey Maguire as
Wow. Okay.
um, simply because when I think of him growing up, I think of him a lot like Spider-Man from Spider-Man's 2. Not so much Spider-Man 3, but Spider-Man 2. Um, because, like I said, he's very much reserved. He's almost a little quieter. I feel Tobey Maguire would be able to pull that off fairly well. Have that quiet charisma about him. He's proven he can lead films, obviously major films with the Spider-Man franchise.
Right.
So I chose him because I feel like he kind of has that presence needed to be.
That's interesting. That's not definitely not somebody I would have thought of, but I don't disagree entirely. I just don't know if because Tobey Maguire kind of plays that middle ground between being way too timid and way too aggressive, and you see that throughout the progression of that Spider-Man trilogy. Another thing is he is very boyish, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
He was almost 30 as he starts playing Spider-Man or Peter Parker for that matter, a high schooler. So there's kind of that whole he's still a kid or very boyish looking, huh?
He's in his 40s now.
He's in his 40s. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to say it's a bad pick, but it's definitely not who I definitely don't see that happening.
No, I'm not expecting to see most of these happen. If I had to pick, that's probably who I'd end up picking. And like I said, just because when I feel like adult Bill, I picture like somebody who is confident but also fairly timid. And obviously, I don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't seen the uh, TV series, the miniseries, or read the book. But I did read up on these characters to see what they look like going in the second film. And one thing is he kind of regresses back to that once he kind of has to go back to Derry. He regresses back to more of what he was in this first film. And I feel like Tobey Maguire would be a very good adult version of what we saw in this film.
Yeah, I think that especially once you start thinking about the Great Gatsby type of Tobey Maguire, he kind of does play that. I am timid around certain things, but I also can speak up for myself and be the person I have to be.
It's also with the Bill. It's just a matter of likability almost. Like he's the main protagonist of the film.
Right.
Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man is a character that I root for because of what Tobey Maguire brings to that character. He comes off to me as a very rootable personality, rootable actor, and if you know what I'm saying.
Sure.
Like he's I feel like he's very good for playing these almost wholeheartedly good, but also kind of character flaws in the sense that they're shy, timid type, like that type of characters, which is what I think Bill very much is.
Okay, I think actually that's a very good casting. He kind of change my mind on that because that just caught me off guard. But I do like that. That's a very interesting pick.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So next, at least on my list, I have Beverly.
Okay.
So you want me to go first? Or do you want to
Yeah,
say who you
go
got?
ahead, shoot.
Okay, for Beverly, I went with Amy Adams.
Okay.
Um, I will say this: I didn't choose Jessica Chastain because I feel like that's like the most obvious choice for this role. That was like the out of all the roles, choosing Jessica Chastain for this role was like the easiest thing in the history of things. So I tried to pick somebody else, and my next choice was Amy Adams. It's because she's a fantastic actress, obviously, but she's very good at being able to bring humanity to characters in very precarious or weird situations, which it is a very obviously these characters are put in very awkward situations and very weird situations. I feel like she's the type of actress that would excel in this type of situation in this type of film.
All right, so quite honestly, I had Amy Adams as my first choice, and I scratched her name out because as I was thinking about it, she just seems a little bit too sophisticated. She kind of does lack that. I feel weird saying the word sexiness, but that kind of charm, I guess. I mean, it's nothing against Amy Adams, but she always seems to kind of play very similar roles, very classy roles. And when you're fighting an evil clown monster, I don't know that that's your best choice. So what I went for was, it's a little bit of a stretch here, but I said Scarlett Johansson. Now, let me defend that real quick, because she's been in so many roles as, so many different characters that she can play the badass leader like a Black Widow, but she can also regress a lot and play almost the very cautious type character. And you do see that throughout the character of Black Widow in the MCU, just that she will go fight, but she also wants to stay back and think about it a little bit. And I think she has a lot of the same personality traits, or she can, I guess. That's what an actress does. So what do you think of Scarlett Johansson? What do you think of that?
I'm not going to say it. It's not a bad choice. I see what you're saying. She's very good at being both like a leader while also being much more kind of restrained and pulled back.
Right.
In roles, we've seen that in multiple movies, not just in the MCU. But like I said, getting back to what you said earlier, the sophistication of you said Amy Adams is almost too sophisticated for this role. I think that this character is probably the most sophisticated character in the movies, and I guess in the book as well, in the series. And for me, like I said, this feels like an Amy Adams role. I guess we disagree on that. To me, this feels like a role that like I could picture her in.
Yeah, I will say that when I thought of the character of Beverly, she was the first image that came to mind. But where I differ, I feel like Amy Adams is very cleanly cut, very rounded edges, while if you went through the kind of childhood that Bev had, you would be a little bit more jagged, you would be a little bit rougher around the edges, which is why I went with Scarlett Johansson.
Well, that's the thing is, I feel like at least what we saw in this first movie is Beverly is a little rough around the edges, but she is very much still that composed individual of the group.
Yeah.
Through all this stuff, and that's kind of what I was trying to say earlier. Is this is a very composed character through a very difficult, awkward, weird situation that she grew up in, and I feel like Adams thrives, and that's what she's good at. She's good at portraying that calm, composed feeling in the face of weird, unusual circumstances.
Sure. Yeah.
So that's
we'll agree to disagree because I see your points and I understand, but there are two that I think if either one was casted, I wouldn't be throwing a tantrum. I think either one, as well as Jessica Chastain for that matter, would all do that role perfectly justice.
I would probably, if I had to bet money on Jessica Chastain getting this role
Yeah, definitely.
because she's worked with the director in the past. I have
Right.
that, and she's one of the best actresses on the planet. So there's also that.
There you go.
So who do you have next on your list?
All right. So next up, I got Richie, the comedian, the weirdo kid. He's just
Yeah.
originally played by Finn Wolfhard in the first chapter. All
Mm-hmm.
right. I got Bill Hader, who I know he's like a favorited pick almost, but I can't think of anybody else to play that role. I mean, I really thought about it, but Bill Hader just seems born to play that.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I have two names down, and he's one of the two names I have down. The other name I put down, which I don't know if this would work because he might be a little too old. I have Paul Rudd.
Oh, okay. That's a
Is the second name I have on there. Like I said, he's the guy who's proven he can do dramatic acting. He's proven he can do comedic acting, both exceptionally well. And I feel like that's what you need with this role. I feel like he's a guy that can deliver those punchlines in those awkward moments, those stressful moments. So yeah, I have Paul Rudd. But like I said, Bill Hader is the second option I have on my Richie. Richie's the only person I have two names for, and those are the two names.
all right.
So
I like the idea of Paul Rudd. In
the thing is,
thought.
he's I think in his late 40s. I don't know if he's young enough to play this role, which is why I put a second person in Bill Hader.
Well, the thing with Paul Rudd though is, you look at him and you kind of don't know his age. I think he could play either way. If he could play an older role, he could play a younger role. I think he would. I think he'd be able to pull off the role of Richie very well.
Mm-hmm.
He can be hysterical in more than a few of his roles. He can also be very taken back and dramatic, I guess. Which seems to be the role of Richie very well. And I will say, in my opinion, Paul Rudd is a much more proven actor than Bill Hader.
Paul Rudd is another one of he's probably one of the most charming actors in Hollywood, one of the most likable actors in Hollywood. And the thing with Finn Wolfhard's Richie is he's charming and he's likable,
Mm-hmm.
in a very unique way, a very fairly vulgar way actually. And I feel like that's something Paul Rudd. It's a very fine line when you're being as vulgar as Richie is and being able to still be charming and likable. Paul Rudd's the kind of guy that can toe that line, I think, exceptionally well.
Yeah, I definitely think that I wouldn't put it past him to be able to nail a role like that, and I would be very interested to see what he does in the horror movie type setting.
Yeah,
I think that would be a pleasant thing to see.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree more. That's why I have him as my Richie. Well, so my next person on my list, I have Mike.
Okay. All right.
So I'll admit this is also might be a bit of a stretch considering I don't think we've ever actually seen him in anything outside of comedy, but I'm giving him a pass because he directed a horror-ish thriller suspense film. I have Jordan Peele as Mike.
That's not one I expect. That's not. That's another one that just I didn't think about it.
And like I said, I completely understand you not thinking about that because I don't think he has any acting experience in this genre.
Right.
Or in anything like this, but he directed Get Out, so
he does understand the concept of it.
He understands the mindset almost of this film and the mindset of the actors or characters or whatever. So I put him in there. It's more wishful thinking. It's not going to happen. It's not going to come anywhere close to happening. But that's who I have as my Mike.
Now, for Mike, I did have two because I was really bouncing between these two. And also, these were two people that we've already talked about today. I have Donald Glover.
Okay.
And I have Chadwick Boseman.
Hey, sign Chadwick Boseman up, man. He can be in everything.
I mean, he really has proven to be a very versatile actor. He's a much easier choice to go with, in my opinion. He's a lot safer.
Has he ever done a role that would be like this, though?
Not outright, not really.
Off the top of my head.
But with Donald Glover, he's used to very lighthearted things, but after seeing him in the Solo trailer and just being cast for Han Solo or for Lando Calrissian and in Solo, I think that he has the chops and he does everything.
Yeah.
I think that he could easily take this role and be that weirdo kid that has, was homeschooled, was, just very different, was bullied. Uh, he would just be strange and fit into the Losers Club aspect of it.
Yeah. The thing I'd probably lean more towards Chadwick Boseman than Donald Glover. It's not to take anything away from Donald Glover. I think this is a role that leans more towards the serious side, more towards the, Tom Hardy side, as if you will, of being like, that guy that's, he's big and confident, in a way. In a way.
Well, okay. I just have one thing to say though, because the character of Mike, he doesn't leave Derry. He's in Derry,
Yeah.
I believe, his whole life. So he's always kind of bogged down with this idea of Pennywise lurking. And that's why I did pick Donald Glover. I think because Chadwick Boseman is a very strong, very masculine type actor, and Donald Glover's a bit more boyish. And seeing Donald Glover, he's kind of always under that constant fear that something's going to go wrong, something's going to go missing, Pennywise is going to be here. He doesn't really grow out of that shell.
Okay, I see what you're saying. I can see that. I will agree with that to an extent because, like I said, Donald Glover, I don't know. Have we seen him give a full-on serious performance yet?
Not yet. We're still waiting on something entirely serious.
And like I said, this character is not going to be one of the characters that has tons of comedic moments in this film, because you have characters like Richie and Eddie. Those two mainly are going to be the two guys that get a bulk of the comic relief in this film.
Right.
So I would lean more towards a serious actor for that role, which is why I think I'd favor Chadwick over Donald Glover.
And like I said, he is a much safer pick to go with being Chadwick Boseman. But either one, I think, also would play that role very well.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. And my opinion could change after I see Solo and what he does with that.
Certainly. All right, so
yeah,
next up on my list, I got Stan. All right,
okay.
Who are you looking at for that?
Yeah, this might be the most oddball choice I have on this list. Simply because I couldn't find anybody that I felt looked or felt like Stanley necessarily.
Right.
Because I wanted to cast a Jewish actor in this role, so I went with Seth Rogen. Yeah, I know, and I don't necessarily have a defense of that, other than I really like Seth Rogen.
I would be lying if I didn't say that Seth Rogen's name did cross my mind for a second.
So I have him as on my list, and I guess I'll try to defend it now. So he's a very, very much a comedic guy, but we've seen in what he's able to do, that he's able to, both in directing and not so much acting, but mostly directing, get across more serious,
right,
serious films or serious moments in comedic films. I'd be interested to see what he does in a much more serious film, a much more serious movie than most of what he's done. And I will say, like I said, when I was reading up on where these characters end up in this next film, I saw something that made me kind of be like, Seth Rogen probably wasn't the right choice for this role, but I put him there anyway.
Well, okay.
I'm not going to say what that is.
Well, one thing I will say about Seth Rogen, just to try and help you defend your point, because you clearly need a little help on Seth Rogen's so much of a stretch. I'll help you out. Well, okay, so Seth Rogen he was, in Skins, which wasn't I'm sorry, not Skins. He was in Freaks and Geeks, which is a comedic TV show. But he had his moments, it has its moments of serious elements. And he was also in Donnie Darko. He was a very small role, but he's been around the very serious atmospheres. And, nothing about the It films say this is strictly horror. They kind of fuse the genres of action, of coming of age, of comedy, of horror. It's a little bit of everything.
I view it the first one at least as more of a coming of age film, a horror coming of age film first and a horror film second.
Right.
Simply because I feel like the horror and complements the coming of age aspect of that movie flawlessly. I feel like it's a secondary component though. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so for my pick, I was just like looking through. I started looking up actors. I was just trying to think of something to play Stan, and I kind of had a eureka moment when I thought of this.
I saw it.
Elijah Wood.
Okay. Okay.
Honestly, he's a little bit just of a weird actor, and that I don't know if he would fit perfectly into this entire universe of what it is, but I do think he could fit that role very well.
So I don't have an issue with you saying that. It's just I'm trying to picture him as an adult Stanley, and I can't.
I mean, well, because you are used.
I don't necessarily know why.
Have you seen the TV show Wilfred, the U.S. version of Wilfred?
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of Elijah Wood, a little bit more serious, but that same idea of him, I feel like that would fit him really, really well.
And like I said, like I agree that he would be great for the role. I just, for whatever reason, I can't picture him in this role.
Right. Yeah, I think that's fair.
I feel like Elijah Wood might be shorter than the actor who actually plays him in this movie. I don't know if that's true or not.
Elijah Wood is a small guy.
But he was like the tallest kid in this movie, and Elijah Wood played a hobbit, so
yeah, still I just think the look and the feel of Elijah Wood as a personality, as an actor, I think he could just get it, and
I can see it. I can see it. I guess. It's better than Seth Rogen, that's for sure.
All right. Another one that Stan is. I'm gonna be curious to see who they end up casting as him.
I expect most of these to be fairly under the radar actors. I don't feel like most of them are going to be A-list type actors.
Right.
Big name actors. They might have one or two, but I don't think much more than that. So with that being said, though, we have two characters left. And next person on my list is Eddie. So I guess we'll do Eddie next.
Yeah, sure.
Why don't you go first this time? Because I went first last time, and you laughed at me because I said Seth Rogen.
All right. I'll go ahead and go first. This one, Eddie was probably the character I had the most hard time with.
Mm-hmm.
Just because he's a very specific type person, being the hypochondriac, but he also has his funny moments.
Yeah.
And I went with Evan Peters, the American Horror Story actor, who's proven time and time again to be entirely versatile. Honestly, I just think he could get the look, the feel right of Eddie. He can play a really, really just strange person, but he also can make you laugh. I think Evan Peters would fit very well.
I agree. That's actually a fairly good choice. I don't know if it's as good as my choice, but I like it.
All right.
I definitely like it. No, he's like you said. He can do both the comedy and the seriousness, and Eddie is the role that requires both of those. It's probably the most, I don't want to say dynamic character, but the most unique character.
Yeah, that exactly.
In terms of what you have to be able to do as an actor. I felt the kid who played him was able to really get all that across. A character that probably shouldn't be as funny as he is ended up being quite hilarious.
Right. Well, because you're kind of laughing with the character of Eddie. You're laughing nervously. You're laughing a bit uncomfortably, and that seems to just be Evan Peters' niche.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Absolutely. Jack Grazer, I think, was the kid who played Eddie in the first film. He was fantastic.
Yeah.
So for my choice, though, this was one of the roles that was easier for me to cast simply because I couldn't think of anybody at first, but then I thought of the person as like a eureka moment like you had with Stan. But it happened fairly quickly. I have Topher Grace.
Oh, okay. Huh.
Simply because I feel Eddie is very much kind of like a quirky and almost like a nervous comedy about him, and I feel like in that 70s show which is where I know mostly about Topher Grace. I've seen him in other stuff, but kind of nervous, quirky
Huh.
comedy that Eddie has. And I've seen him, like I said, in serious things as well, play fairly serious roles. So I have him as my Eddie.
That's an interesting one. He kind of does have the right look to him. Now, where I do disagree is the feel that Evan Peters would bring. Like they're very different actors to play a role that I think
Yeah.
both of them would fit fairly well.
Mhm.
Um, Topher Grace, he just something seems a little off there. Which I mean, if you're looking at the character of Eddie, he is a little off. Uh,
That was my thing with him is Eddie has a quirkiness to him that Topher Grace I feel has in that '70s show. It's a similar quirkiness about them.
exactly.
Obviously, Eddie's much more of a hypochondriac, um, but I feel it's a similar quirkiness, a similar kind of comedic style the two characters have.
Yeah, I think that would end up working really well. Again, another one that if I end up seeing either one of these two casted, I think that would be it'd make the second film a lot more enjoyable.
Yeah, you like it better than Seth Rogen as Stan?
You're not gonna forget about that one, are you?
Nope. All right.
All right,
So yeah,
let's wrap
what
this up.
character? Yeah.
Oh, okay. So
No, go
let's
for it, man.
wrap this up with our very last pick. We got
Yes, sir.
Ben.
Yeah.
Who you got?
Yeah. This is the hardest one for me to cast, and I don't really know why. So I just ended up going with Chris Pratt,
Okay.
because Chris Pratt's an actor that, like I said, he does comedy serious blend really well.
Right.
Those comedic characters in fairly serious films or mixed films fairly well. And he comes off, I feel, has a lot of that same charm and same likability, lovability, whatever you want to use, as Ben does in the first film.
Sure. And one thing we'll say about Ben is the transition of him from the first film to the second film is he does lose a lot of weight.
Yeah, that's one
So
thing I
that's
made
just one
sure
thing to keep in mind as we go
cast.
through these picks. Okay. Okay. Yeah, Chris Pratt, he's a very sensible choice. He is very adorable in the weirdest sense of that. That
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
just like he keeps the personality and the lovability of Ben from the first one and can easily carry it into the second one. And we've seen Chris Pratt do that time and time again.
Absolutely.
So okay, you went for a little bit more of a fun-loving casting, and my casting was Jude Law.
All right. Go for it.
All right, so is mostly known in I guess Sherlock Holmes was probably his most notable performances. He's been in so much, but
Uh,
the
Sherlock
look,
Holmes, most recently, probably the King Arthur movie.
yeah, there you go. But he kind of has a feel. Now, okay, I will say with Ben, I had an issue because I wanted to go cutesy adorable almost, and I didn't know where the balance was between him being a strong masculine dude and being having the same boyish charm as Ben. So I just kind of threw out the boyish part and just went full manly man. But
It's
Jude
not hard.
Law, I feel like he's quirky enough to be able to play that role. He's very fit. I just think that he could work very well in trying to come through. Let's say make Bev regret going with Bill.
I feel like Chris Pratt can do that too, man.
Most definitely.
Especially if Bill's Tobey Maguire. That's all I'm saying.
Hey, he might have a problem if Bill's Tom Hardy though.
You know what? I was the way you described Mike. I was expecting you to, or not Mike, Ben. I was expecting you to say Tom Hardy, man. He's in shape.
I mean, but with
He's a manly man.
Jude Law can play that quirky, comedic enough guy. He can also bring out the serious notes. I think he would be really enjoyable to watch in a horror flick. And and he can play the action hero, you know. And so with all these guys, you know, I will say, at least with my list, as you know, we're finishing up with them, everybody I picked has at least some aspect that I think would fit into the Losers Club ideology almost. Every
Yeah, I agree with that. I feel mine does too, personally. But, you know,
Seth Rogen, Amy
especially Seth
Adams,
Rogen, man.
Seth Rogen and Amy Adams on the same screen would be that sure would be fun to watch.
Hey, Seth Rogen and Tobey Maguire, man.
Hey,
You know,
that's
book it right now. That's the greatest movie of all time.
hey, that's why they're called fan casts, right? They're just what we want to see, not what's gonna happen.
Absolutely, man. I like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if none of these people end up getting cast because, quite frankly, most of them are pretty far, highly unlikely to get these parts.
And you know, each one of these, I'm
except
really
for Seth Rogen. Seth Rogen, I think, is a lock.
he's got it. He's in the bag. He's already doing the makeup and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But no, with these, I will say I tried to just pick out certain actors or actresses with the characteristics that could fit into that whole, like I said, the Losers Club mentality. You know, Bill Hader's a little strange for Richie. Evan Peters is a really awkward kind of guy. Scarlett Johansson, she can be that kind of, you know, at least it would be interesting. That would be my, you know, I didn't mean to come back to Bev, but Scarlett Johansson, it would be interesting to see her play that a lot more aggressed, a lot more not timid but still awkward type of role. Jude Law and Tom.
Johansson's not a bad choice.
Yeah, and then Jude Law and Tom Hardy are the two that I really, they don't fit that same idea. But I feel like Wes Bentley as Bill instead. He kind of brings that all together.
Yeah, I agree with Wes Bentley. Tom Hardy took me off guard. Talking about Tobey Maguire and Seth Rogen taking you off guard, man. Tom Hardy. And then one thing I will say about Jude Law versus Chris Pratt. Jude Law does not seem like the kind of guy who likes Boys to Men.
Okay. New
Chris
Kids on the
Pratt
Block.
The guy that would rock out to Boys to Men.
All right, yeah, you know what?
That Chris Pratt wins the fan casting.
All right, so are we looking for a Guardians Type 3 listening to New Kids on the Block and Boys to Men?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The Guardians 3 soundtrack is going to be all Boys to Men.
All right, I'm not gonna miss that one then. All right. Any closing remarks on your personal list?
I think it's the best list, man.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no.
All right, yeah. You guys hear that? Hit him up on the email. He's placing bets right now. All right.
Like I said, with what you said about your list and trying to cast people who you felt have the qualities of the Loser Club as a whole, what I try to do is the main thing I do for fan casting is I think of the character. So like I thought of Bill, and I'm like, adult Bill. Who's the first person that comes to mind when I think of an adult Bill? And it was Tobey Maguire. Eddie. Who's the first person that comes to mind when I think of an adult Eddie? Topher Grace. Or a Paul Rudd with Richie. Or an Amy Adams with Bev. Or a Seth Rogen with Stanley. Okay, maybe not that one. But the rest of them, they were guys that they came to mind first when I thought of those roles. And that to me was the main thing. I kind of went with my gut on a lot of this. Obviously, I made sure that they fit with the character that we would actually see in the second It film.
Sure.
And I think they all do at least fairly well. So that's kind of my closing thoughts on my list.
Now, I just want to say one thing because this just came to mind. As you know, I was just listening to what you were saying, and one thing that I think would be a really interesting casting would be for Eddie, Jason Bateman. I just want what's your just a hot take because I just came up with this. What do you think of Jason Bateman?
I actually think that's pretty good casting. I ain't gonna lie. Is he? How old is he though? Is he young enough?
He's kind of bordering. He's kind of up there with like Paul Rudd. He's bordering a little bit too old.
Yeah. I'm not gonna say no to that. If I saw that they cast Jason Bateman as Eddie, I wouldn't be mad at all, man.
Right. I
I
think.
I quite like that. Not as much as Topher Grace, but I like.
All right. All right. Hey, man. I'm not trying to
Yeah,
step on your toes here.
it's a good choice. I wouldn't be mad at all if they cast
All right.
Jason Bateman.
Yeah. Didn't mean to get off topic there. That came to mind.
It was on topic. It was in the framework, sort of. So yeah.
At least I'm not still talking about Deadpool 2.
Yeah.
All right.
We're going on off on the rails. Yeah.
I think that's about everything we got for today. Yeah.
Yeah, we covered all four things. Next thing I'd imagine we'd be back for would be reviewing Black Panther.
Yeah, absolutely. We're gonna try and get that review out once we've both seen the movie and kind of have our fresh opinions of it and what we think of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so we will see you guys. You guys will hear us next week.
Yeah.
Another episode of the Coolie McDoolie podcast. We're gonna try and be doing these every week at this point. Now they're up on YouTube. We're still, working on getting everything out there. But yeah, be sure to like, subscribe, and always be listening for more stuff. And we will see you guys next time. Later.
See ya.